listed and there's no song listed, that's not the fault of the person who puts the bulletin together. She called me up earlier this week and said, "You got songs list ready for me?" And I said, "No, I don't." I said, "You'll have lots of room to put other stuff in the bulletin this week." So I was a little bit under the gun, behind the 8 ball, I don't know, whatever the term is that should use there. A little farther behind the schedule with the busyness of the season. Just always things going on this time of year. So I just invite you to welcome or to worship with us this morning. Hey, let's just have a word of prayer before we begin. Heavenly Father, we're just thankful to be here this morning and to gather together, to come to your presence, to give glory and honor to you, and to celebrate still, even though the official day of our calendar is past, we're still in the season of celebrating the coming of your Son. And really it's something that we need and should celebrate all year round. It's just an amazing thing that you came here for us. We just look forward this morning to singing worship and praise to you. We just invite you into our presence this morning, thanking you for who you are. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Go ahead and invite you to stand for this first song.
To Hey, we trust that you had a good Christmas season, and some of you it's not over. A couple of you still have a Christmas to go, so I guess you just make this last for as long as you can. Some of you young ones have to be nice for a little bit longer, and then you can start being naughty again, I guess. I don't know. Bethel, that applies to you too. So you be careful now, right? Hey, we're thankful that you're here, and we enjoyed our Christmas and hope that you enjoyed yours with your family. We do have 2 prayer shawls in the back. One is for Emma Thompson. That's Carrie Thompson's youngest daughter. There's a tumor in her abdomen, and to pray for a good outcome there. The other is for Debbie Fields' younger sister Pam, and she just had surgery on her leg. She had broken bones in the upper and lower, and had a rod inserted, and she also has deteriorating discs in her back. So stop by the table in the back, and let's let First Church Christ be an encouragement to both of those as well. Hey, we start. We're just doing a one-off sermon today on kind of I don't even know how to describe it. Putting God first or making God central. What a great way to end the year and start the new year as we do that. It's been a wonderful Christmas season. Hope you enjoyed our time with the Christmas carols and finding some of those. But we're going to shift gears and launch more. Also, don't forget that if you're able to join us today afterwards, the golden ladle. Wayne, is that going to be in your house again? I don't know. Maybe not. So there's soup cook-off tonight, or at 11:30 right after service. You're welcome to join us. If you said, oh, I forgot all about it, I didn't bring anything, you can still join us. That'd be fine. But anyway, we're going to have some fun and just end up having a little lunch together. Join us for that. Again, we just invite you to worship. We'll have a prayer, and then we'll collect our offering. These offerings are important. I think I spelled that out to you last week. We spend $30,000 to $40,000 a year supporting our missionaries and causes, and so these offerings glorify God in that way, as well as pay for heat and electricity and our salaries and all those things, and we just want to be faithful to that. So if you would bow, we'll pray for that, and the team will come collect that. Dear God, thank you for the gifts of so many things throughout this past year, and we would lose count if we added up our blessings. So we just want this offering to be a blessing to you. We're thankful that we can partner with people near and far to spread the good news of Jesus. Help us to be about that. May that be our cause. In Jesus' name.
We have come to this place. Heavenly Father, we come now to the table, and we're just so thankful and so amazed that you chose to leave the glory of heaven, the perfection, and the awesomeness, to come to this world, to be one of us, and to do for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. And even though it seems that we couldn't even make a little room for you to have a decent place to be, Lord, that you chose to come anyway, to ensure that we have a place at this table where we come to celebrate now. Not only for today, but to ensure that all who call on you as their Lord and Savior would have room at this table forever. So amazing, so incredible, such grace, such love. Lord Jesus, may we truly have room in our hearts for you this morning as we partake. In your name we pray.
We get a couple of stories today. This Christmas was a quiet one. Christmas Day itself for us anyway. It was just Barb and myself and our oldest son Wade and our youngest son Darren and our daughter Ashley had gone back to be with her family. That was the first for us, so we had to share. And that's okay, we get that. But anyway, Christmas Day was pretty quiet. We woke up, had something for breakfast, and then it was quiet. So Wade and I went out to my wood shop, and we spent all morning. He's not a woodworker per se, but he's kind of liking it the older he gets. So we worked on this little, I have a hickory slab top, and then we're putting some walnut legs together on it. And the walnut legs are just basically a 2x4 walnut, kind of like a picture frame. And they're mitered at the corners. I don't know if that makes sense. I should have brought it to show you, but each corner is mitered, right? So if you've done any work and you understand that. So we had worked all morning, got this walnut and planed it down, and took it to the miter saw, cut the 45 degrees on there. We put it in the band clamp to glue, or to where it's where you glue it together. We did a dry run, and we tightened the band clamp, and we tightened it, and the joints just had a little gap in them, and we weren't real happy about that. We want a bigger, stronger joint. Nobody likes it sloppy, so we're trying to figure out what did we do wrong. Are all the joints wrong? We checked, and it seemed like we couldn't figure it out, and we would recheck. We tighten up that band clamp, and those joints would open up just a little bit. If one was right, the others were wrong. If the other one was right, we couldn't get them all to match up. And so finally we figured out that all the joints were right except one joint. But when we tightened it up, that one joint threw all the other joints out of position. Does that make sense? Shake your head if you're tracking with me. And we finally figured out, so we were glad that all the joints were cut right except for one joint. So we fixed that one joint, we put it in the band clamp, and it came together. Our plan came together, we were able to glue them up, and we were happy that everything came together. It turned out it was just one wrong joint rather than a bunch of wrong joints. Another story about a man who went in, he had open heart surgery a week afterwards. He wasn't doing very good, and he said, "Doctor, I just hurt everywhere, every part of my body hurts." He says, "Well, I don't know what to do." And he said, "Well, touch your knee." And he'd take his finger out, and he'd touch his knee, and he'd writhe in pain. And the pain's just shooting from my body. He said, "Touch your shoulder." And he'd take his finger, and he'd push on his shoulder, and he'd, it hurts. He says, "Well, touch your toes." He bends over, and he sticks his finger out, touches his toes, and says, "The pain is just too much, it's just shooting through my body." He says, "You know what your problem is? You have a dislocated finger." It seemed like everything was going wrong, but it really wasn't. It was just one thing wrong. Ever been like that in life? Where it seemed like everything was wrong, but maybe not everything is wrong. Could it be that everything's not wrong? Because it seems like it's wrong, People have that mentality sometimes. Everything's wrong. My marriage is not going so great. Some days are good, some days are bad. My job is really not what I wanted, and it's just a job, and I have to put my time in, and it gets old, and my co-workers are no fun to be around, and every part of my life is just wrong. My money, I don't have any money, and they complain about everything. Could it be that not everything is wrong? Maybe it's just one thing. A lot of people live lives today where they just exist. Life is going nowhere. They graduated from high school and they had some dreams, and then life just sort of took over, and for whatever reason they just sort of exist. And they look back on their life and go, "This isn't what I had planned." And they're just going through the routine, going through the motions. We have a whole society that basically fits that description. They really have no purpose. They're living lives without purpose. They are just existing. Maybe that's your story. I don't know. And they just live these stagnant lives where the joy seems to be hard to find, even when there's joy all around, especially during the Christmas season. But it shows up. This lack of purpose shows up in our divorce rate. It shows up in our... just think about it. When two people who have no purpose get together, you think that's going to be a good thing? That's not a good thing in life. That's what happens. A lot of our marriages, we have two people looking for meaning. They look for it in another person. They find out both are empty. That's not good. It finds yourself in the suicide rate, discouragement, this stagnant existence just gives people no purpose. I'm amazed at the growth in the area of Christian counseling altogether, but Christian counseling. I am so glad that we have some Christian counselors even within our church family, but in the greater area that I'm able to refer people to. 25 years ago, there weren't those options. There just weren't. And those are some big issues, depression and discouragement and even more than that. because of stagnant lives sometimes. I am so thankful that we have counselors who know the Lord and love the Lord and use that in their counseling. It's a huge benefit to me and to families as well. But people try to hide their pain and various addictions, and it just shows up in our society. Sometimes it's just empty feeling. What's success? What's purpose? What's success? A successful life isn't a life where you measure what you have done compared to what somebody else has done. Isn't that what Facebook does? We took this trip, we did this at Christmas, this is what, you know, you gotta be really careful with that. And it becomes this comparison. We lose a successful life compared to what somebody else has done. We know that's not success. Successful life is where you measure what you have done compared to what you were supposed to do. Measure what you're done compared to what you were designed to do. What your purpose is. I guess that begs the question, what is this one thing that sometimes people miss? What's this dislocated finger? What's this joint that's a little out of place? What's this? Maybe not everything is so bad. Maybe it's just one thing. Maybe it's where I put God in position in my life. Could that be the one thing? Maybe it's discovering your purpose. We have more written material. We have more podcasts about God's Word. Great preachers, great teaching, great video series, oodles of it, available instantly, and yet we still have a culture and society that struggles with purpose and meaning. What's that one thing? What is it? A number of years ago, Rick Warren wrote a book, and there was a big church series. Anyway, Purpose-Driven Life. And he took some criticism probably for some of that, but it really is a solid book, and it's a great foundational, a purpose-driven life. And I don't like it because it's kind of a cliche, but in that book he said, you have speculation or revelation. You can keep trying the one next thing, get opinions from somewhere else, or you can go to the one who created you in the first place, who knows the reason you were made in the first place. Maybe it's time we go to the one who created us to look for meaning. Several months ago, my 2006 Buick, the headlight went out, and I thought, oh great, I'm going to have to take it in, it's going to cost me X amount of dollars, who knows what it's going to cost, to have someone put a new headlight in my car. So I thought, I'm handy enough, maybe I can figure it out. So I opened up the hood and started to look, and I wasn't sure which screws to take out and how to pop that headlight out, and I got frustrated. I thought, maybe I should go to the one who made the car. I'll go to the owner's manual, and then I'll YouTube it. And in 5 minutes, I had the right screws out, went down to O'Reilly's or whatever it is down there, and picked up the headlight, this little thing, snapped it in, and I was done. Easy. I felt good. But I had to go back to the owner's manual. I had to go back to the one. Could it be that they knew more about it? You're laughing at me because you could have done that in 3 minutes, couldn't you? Could it be that the one who wrote the book, one who created it and made it, knew more about it than I did? Obviously so. I got frustrated when I didn't know. God knows what your purpose is. What's that one thing? What is it? What is it? We all know the importance of a good foundation. If you've ever had a home that wasn't on a good foundation, there were lots of struggles. The windows didn't open very well, and the doors would get stuck. Or water would come in and there'd be crumbles, when we went to Mexico, we had to build an 11 by 22 slab down there for homes. And we wanted to make sure it was level and square. That was super important, because if it wasn't, the water would sit on there. We couldn't build our house square. It was important that that slab be as good as we could get it, solid. You put fiber in there and you'd reinforce it, and you made it solid because we knew the value of a good foundation. If you were to build a home, you would want that foundation to be true and solid and firm. Because without it, it would begin to crumble, and everything else is built upon that foundation. We know about foundations. In band, any band players out there? You learn notes. Bum, 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 bum. I used to play the trumpet, okay? And you do those scales over and over. Those are foundational. If you can handle those, you can move on to a bigger piece of music. We teach our children the ABCs, don't we? Moms go over the ABCs with their kids. Why? Because that's foundational. We know without the ABCs, they'll go nowhere in life. Now, that's in our culture. Obviously, there's other alphabet and stuff. But if they don't know A through Z, they're going to be lost. If they can't read, they aren't going to be able to communicate. So we know that that foundation is super important. Matthew 7, 24 through 27 talks about a solid foundation. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. Jesus is wrapping up his Sermon on the Mount. If you have 15 minutes, you ought to read Matthew 5, 6, and 7 on a regular basis. Great, great sermon. He's wrapping up that sermon and he says, put into practice those things, that foundation. If you build on the rock. So what is this thing we need to get right? Here it is. You were created, you were made for God's purpose. That's why you were formed, to bring glory and honor to God. You were created for His purpose, and yet we switched it around. We think God's made for our purpose. Hey, God, would you bless my plans? Hey, God, this is what I want my life to look like. I'm going to paint it this way. God says, whoa, make the switch. You were created for my purpose, and not the other way around. We've turned it around. Ever used the phrase, ever heard the phrase, God is my co-pilot? It's kind of popular a number of years ago. Said, hey, God's going to help direct my life. That's not what God designed. He doesn't want to be your co-pilot. With you at the controls, and He's just there to help in case of time of need. God wants to be in charge. You were created for His purpose, not the other way around. Colossians 1:16, for by Him all things were created. Do you believe that? All things were created by Him. In heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through Him and for Him. You were created by Him. You were created for Him. He is before all things. He's in front of all things. And through Him all things hold together. He's the glue. All things were created by Him, for Him. You were created for Him. That's it. That might be what keeps the joints from getting together. It might be a dislocated finger. You were created for Him. Your world seems chaotic. It seems like everything is wrong. It could be that God is not in the correct position in your life. He wants to be before all things. Before all things. Before your kids' sports programs. Before dance. Before work. Before family. Before you decide what to do with your life, He wants to be part of it. Sometimes we put Christ, in addition to all those things. And I see it so common for young parents today, they just use the church in addition to. They want the church to enhance their kids' life, just to make them more well-rounded. Kind of like we sign our kids up for Boy Scouts or some special program, because we know they can learn skills that will enhance their life. Jesus didn't die on a cross to enhance your life, to be in addition to those things. He wants to be the center of your life. He was before all things. He's not there just to enhance or make your life better. It seemed like to me that obviously the world has God out of the position He deserves. And we wonder why things are eroding. Let me ask you this. If someone came from the outside and spent a month in your house, would they see God in the proper position? The place where He deserves to be? And what would be the evidence of God being in the proper position? if they had to make a list of what the evidence is that God is in proper position in your life, what would be on that list? Interesting. God created you, God saved you, God sent His Son for you, so you can help accomplish His purpose. You were created for His purpose. It's easy to get wrapped up in ourselves. Our prayers are usually about ourselves. Help with this, help with that, provide this for me, bless me. Might be an indication that God is not in the correct position when our prayers are all about me. The story of Israel, God's chosen people, is a story of God being out of position oftentimes, isn't it? Over and over again, they would love God, they would worship God, then they would get distracted, or they would forget God, or they would put God into addition to some of the other gods, and this would just go on and on and on. 1 Kings, or 2 Kings 17. And this occurred because the people of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared other gods, and walked in the customs of nations from whom the Lord drove out before the people of Israel, and in the customs that the kings of Israel had practiced. So they had not really forgotten God altogether. They had just started practicing some of the things they had before. That's what they did. We know the story. Aaron, Moses is up on Mount Sinai. Aaron says, hey, take off your rings of gold. Your wives have these in their ears. Let's make these. And they make a golden calf. After God had walked them through all these things, God provided for them. Moses is up, and in 40 days or less, they're already worshiping something else. They had gone back to what they knew. That's what they knew in Egypt, their ancestors. And they had watched them worship. And so they defaulted back to something else. God wasn't completely out of the picture. He was just one of the gods. God was out of position. And when God is out of position in your life, there's chaos. Now, I'm not trying to suggest that if you have God in proper position, all these blessings are going to come your way and life's going to be easy. That's not what I'm saying. But when God is in the proper position, the chaos is less, and hope and strength. I don't know what your testimony is. We might spend some time in the coming year to talk about your story. What's your story? Here's my story. I don't have this great testimony to give you. I was on drugs for years, and I wasn't in prison, and I didn't have sex with 50 women, and I just didn't have, that wasn't me. I gave my life to the Lord when I was 12 years old, and that's what I did. And I had a family and a church that helped me keep God in proper position most of the time. There were times where God got out of position. For the most part, God was in proper position. And so He spared me. And His grace was so great that I didn't have to deal with a lot of those things. I was able to say no to some of those things that would have made my life chaotic. I love the testimonies of those who have overcome. Charlie's on 72 days of being sober. What a testimony to Charlie right now. I love those stories. And God is hopefully back in the proper position in his life. But what I'm saying is, I didn't have that story, but my story is God has been in proper position more often than not. And I'm thankful for that. And I had a church family and a mom and dad that did that. But when God is not in a proper position, there's consequences. Israel had consequences. They had gone back to putting God alongside other gods. They'd forgotten that they were made to glorify Him. They were forgotten to be about His purpose instead of their own. What's your purpose? How are you living out that purpose? God created you with a specific DNA, specific genetics with your name so that you can play a part in fulfilling that purpose. Maybe that's just being a godly mom or a godly dad. Maybe that's your purpose and you're passing it on to the next generation. Maybe He created you to help be in leadership position at work so you can influence work in a godly fashion. Maybe it's a leader position within First Church of Christ. What's your purpose? For most of it, it's not this big, world-changing, life-changing thing. It's just about being faithful day after day, and doing those things that bring God glory. Acts 13:36. For David, after he had served the purpose of God in his own generation, fell asleep. What a great way to go. David, we know David. He had Bathsheba, lied, murder. I mean, his story, he had testimony. But he was a man after God's own heart. For David, after he had served the purpose of God in his own generation, fell asleep. What a great way to go. To know that you serve the purpose of God in your generation. After David did what? After he became king, made a lot of money, and goes wealthy? No. After David served the purpose of God in his generation. You see, you don't want to come to the end of your life with things undone. David had served the purposes of God faithfully, and he fell asleep. He finished what God had put him here to do. You see, you don't mind dying when you've done what you're supposed to do. When you've done what you're supposed to do, death doesn't seem that bad. What are you here to do? You're here to be about the purpose of God. You have a specific DNA. God wired you in a specific way, specific purpose. Sometimes it's a little difficult to figure that out. Again, I like to work with tools. They have specific jobs to do. If I take my handsaw and try to use it as a hammer, it doesn't work very good. Some of you ladies get pretty creative with screwdrivers and doing things like that, okay? But I have a wood plane. I like to keep it sharp, and I like to hear the wisp of the wood go off that. But if I use that to hammer something in or try to cut a board, forget it. It's going to ruin it, and it's going to be chaotic, and it's going to be frustration for everybody. The designer of that tool had a purpose in mind for that tool. God has a purpose for you. Your purpose is to bring Him glory. And you all have different gifts and abilities. Thankfully, we all have different gifts and abilities. Don't try to do something you weren't created to do. You were created to bring Him glory. Some people do that by building structures. Some people do that by being a stay-at-home mom and loving their kids. Some people work in the service department, they work in the medical field, and they provide care, and God gets the glory because they do it not for their own glory, but to help people and to shine a light on God. Some have the ability to make lots of money, and they're very generous with kingdom work because they're not about their purposes, they're about the purposes of God. Will it be said of you? You serve the purpose, she served the purpose of God in her generation. Maybe it's not just everything's falling apart. Maybe it's just that God has gotten out of position. Maybe in your life. Maybe in a coworker's life. And you can be that light to say, hey, this is why you were made. This is the one thing. Get this one thing right. Some of these other things start to get better. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. For those who are called according to His purpose. Sometimes we don't understand that verse. I remember as a kid, Mom would make cakes, and there'd be a thing of flour, a thing of cocoa, and I remember one time sneaking into the cocoa. It had a Hershey's tin, and it had a little pop-off lid. I'd take a knife, and I'd pop that lid off, and I thought, this is going to be good. I'd take a spoon, and I'd take that cocoa, and it was like, nasty. Nasty. And it was like, ugh, how can anything good come from this? But when you combine all those ingredients together, flour by itself, nasty. But when you combine all those things together, something beautiful happens. God has designed us for a purpose. All those things work together for good for those who love Him. 2018 coming to a close. 2019 begins. You want to sign your name at the end of 2018 saying, I served the purpose of God this past year. day. At the end of this day, December 30th, 2018, are you able to say tonight when you go to bed, I'm going to sign my name to the end of this day, knowing that I served God to the best of my abilities. I was faithful. I loved my wife. I loved those around me. One of the great things to do at the end of each day is sign your name at the end of each day. I serve the purpose of God. Might be in a small way. God wants to be in the right position. Everything else, it might seem like everything else is wrong, but maybe it's just that one thing that God just slipped out of position. So when we put him in the right position, all things will come together. Let's pray. Dear God, thank that you have created us with a purpose in mind. Forgive us when we become out of our own agenda, our own desires, and we ask you then to bless our small dreams. Sometimes I think you look at our small dreams and just laugh at them. I have so much more planned for you. Help us, God, to be about your purpose, to shine a light, whether that be this monstrous light or a small light. Help us to be faithful each and every day, to put you, to keep you at the center of our lives. We pray these things in Jesus' name. You're welcome to stay. There's soup at some point in time, and you can take your chance at the golden label. So anyway, have a great 2018 and a new 2019.